Alright, so I've been getting a lot of questions about reloading 300 blackout. So let's just get right into it. Now, as soon as you fire rounds off, we all know what that kind of looks like. Actually, that's already been cleaned. Most of those have been. There we go. Looks all kind of nasty. Now, right before I even do anything with it, I always put it through what's called a vibrator tumbler. Vibrator. And what I mean by that, let me flip this around. This little guy right here. So before I even do anything with it, sizing, so on and so forth, I put all my brass. I've actually started separating the brass from 5.56 to 300 blackout. Those are the two calipers I load currently. And take that off. And that is crushed walnut shells. And basically it just goes in there and after a few hours, shiny. What do we do with that clean case in order to prepare it for reloading? So, I have something called Imperial Sizing Die Wax. That lubricates the case, so when I put it through the sizing / depriming die, it does 2 steps in one. Basically, it doesn't get stuck. A stuck case in a die can be costly, annoying, and infuriating. It's happened. So you take a little bit of that on there. Make sure you get the whole thing. Put it in this tool. Take a glove. Alright, so now it's in the tool. It's all lubricated up, all nice and pretty. We have this crazy die on here. What this die does is it's going to go inside of that opening, and it has that little pin. That pin pushes out the old primer. As it goes in, it gets hard. Alright, maybe I don't have enough lubrication on there. Some people like using what's called One Shot. It's made by Hornady. I prefer using the sizing wax a little bit more. But sometimes I use this as an extra backup just to help. And let's see. There we go. A lot of times the first run is a little tight. And come on, focus. There it goes. So it looks a little different now. Sometimes this actually causes the case to come out a little stretched up here. So now we have to go through the trimming process. Alright, we've sized the brass. We've punched out the primer. Now, we got to clean out that nasty ass primer pocket. Look how black that is. Puck uniformer, put it in my drill, make it easier. Now it's nice and pretty. Much better. Whoopsie. Alright, next step. Gotta measure her out. She is currently 1.365 inches. That is too long according to the Bible. Well, actually it's within tolerance, but I do a trimming on it. Now typically I do a lot more than just one round at a time for obvious reasons. So I'm going to take that little guy out, put this little guy in. So what does this do? Alright, put this in here. that holds the shell. Fancy. All right. This is a Lee trimmer, basically. So this will actually go inside the case, and that little stem stops on the base of this little part right here. So every time I get the same uniform length on each case. Seen a couple pieces of brass fall off. So let's test it out. Got my handy dandy tool. 0, back up. .358. That is the case length per the Hornady guide. Now, while it's in the drill, yes, you can still technically deburr. Anytime you trim out some length, you got to deburr it. All right, so now we have a completed casing. It's been deburred, it's been cleaned up, all the fun stuff. Now it gets a good old primer. So there's all the new little primers. Those slide in there, and it comes up and gets forced into the brass casing. Got the primer in. Now what? Powder. So how do we measure out powder to make sure we have a safe and effective load? Yeah, I know. So again, you've cross-referenced the Bible. I'm using 308 150 grain full metal jacket boat tailed made by Hornady. Get out of the frame. So that bottom piece right there, well, that is the boat tail. It has a cannula on there. That's the little piece right there-ish. And the reason they call it a full metal jacket, there's the lead, and it has a jacket of copper all the way around it. So, full metal jacket. So, it's 150 grains. I already told you that. This book will tell me for 150 grain to 155 grain, and I'm using low gun. See, little gun, I can go up to 17 grains of powder, which they consider max load, and that would get me approximately 1900 feet per second. If I go above that, I can run into dangerous waters. That is their suggestion, is the max is 17 grains. What is a grain? Grain is a weight of measurement. 7,000 grains is 1 pound. So I'm using, for this, for a max load capacity, it is 17 7/1000ths of a pound. Pretty minuscule. Now, 15.7 grains, it's not the max, but it's up there, would get me at 1800 feet per second according to this. So what I like to do is I do about 16 grains. Should be just over 1800 feet per second, should be plenty enough. It's supersonic, and that's what I'm loading, is just some supersonics. 150 grains, that's just, it's cheap ammo. That's the point of me reloading, is to save a little bit of money for when I do target shooting, training shooting, so on and so forth. So, how the hell do you measure out 16 grains? There's multiple ways. There's a manual scale. It can be more accurate. I just absolutely hate it. It's very time consuming. So I cheat. Digital scale. Turn it on, and here's the cup. And I tear the cup. Basically that means I put the cup on the scale and I zero out the weight. So now it says, since I took the cup back off, minus 110.8 grains. That's how much a cup weighs. So it's going to take the weight of the cup away, and when I put the powder charge in there, it gives me, I put 15.4 grains of gunpowder in there. Well, I just got said, I want 16. Basically I just hit this, that puts the powder down. I use this to either increase the amount of powder or decrease. Righty-tighty decreases, lefty-loosey increases. All right, so let's try and get 16 grains of powder. $15.6. $15.8. Side note, humidity will have a huge difference on what it does when you're metering powder through. Temperature, metals and plastic and everything else expands at different rates. So humidity, temperature, so on and so forth will affect that. Humidity will make the powder stick to each other a little bit differently. So that's 16 grains. I want to make sure I get it consistently around 16 grains. So I typically do it 3 times. 16.1. 16.3. So, like I said, 17 is my max, 15.7, and it's 1,800 feet per second. I want to be above 15.7, but I want to be below 16.5. The velocities will be different between each round, but again, this is more for fundamental training, so on and so forth. So I know what these reloads are for, saving money. Reloading is not always about saving money. Sometimes it's about precision. For precision, you might save a little bit of money, but typically you won't. All right, so we're ready to put some powder in here. I do the same thing with the cup. This actually fits into that little green spout at the bottom. And let's see if we can get that. Yep, you can kind of sort of see. There you go. Now you can see the powder. It's in there. Fills up quite a bit. What I was talking about with the spout, that's the spout. So the casing, I just put the case mouth in there and hit the little lever, and approximately 16 grains of powder goes in there. I have a different die in now. This is a cedar die. Now, I have what looks like a loaded cartridge right here. It's not. This is my dummy cartridge, as I call it. Reason that I call it the dummy cartridge, it has no powder, no primer. This is how I test to see exactly how this is loading. So I already tightened this down, but what I do is once I'm actually seating this die, put this all the way up, and I set the die to where I feel a tiny bit of resistance. That actually creates the taper. What I'm talking about the taper is right here. Right here. It tapers into that cannular. And if I'm mispronouncing that, fine, so be it. But right into that little groove, so that way the bullet can't spin, can't just fall out while it's going through my semi-automatic, so on and so forth. So it actually squeezes the round so it doesn't move. Next, there's this little spot up here. That little spot is the bullet depth stem. I can't remember the exact name of it for some odd reason. It's escaping me. So I have to adjust that, make sure it's going to the proper depth. Take a little flathead. And there's my pressure right there. So that's my measuring dummy round. Put that back. Now here's the case that's full of powder. Put that right there. Grab a bullet. Shove it right in the case mouth. Live round. Well, now wait a minute. We still have to do one more part. Gotta measure it. Comes out to 2.09. 2.09 length. Bring the Bible back out. All right. 150 grain Full Metal Jacket boat tail, COL, overall length, 2.09 inches. We are in spec. One more part. Double check something. If you did something wrong here, one of two things is going to happen. Either the bullet will just come pretty much out, it'll be able to spin, or something along those lines, or two, you crushed it. I call this my no-go gauge. If it sticks up above that, it's not perfectly flat, it won't go. It's perfectly flat. This is my headspace gauge. So I know that it's actually going to seat inside the barrel of the gun properly, so when I shoot it, something dangerous won't happen. Very important. So there you have it. 150 grain Full Metal Jacket boat tail 300 blackout, ready to hit the range.